You're listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series that syndicates for the A-List Online, and my name is Andrew Mackay-Smith. The interview subject I've got coming up for you is from a band from Sweden called HammerFall, and it is the singer, Joacim Cans. The reason for the conversation is to promote the August 16, 2019 release by the band called Dominion. Let's have a listen to what Jocaim has to say. Here we go. How the phone is treating you? Are the Australian media contingent treating you well?
Yeah, I think so. They're all been very, very nice so far. So, well, still one left.
Is that it? So one after me, is that right?
No, actually, you are the last
Okay.
one. I only had four this morning, and Oscar is doing the rest.
Okay, fair enough, mate. Yeah. Have you had a lot of feedback from us in Australia over the years? Because I know there are a lot of fans down here, and I hope you know that. But have we been communicating with you over social media and the like?
Yeah, and it's always almost the same question, like, why don't you come and tour in Australia? And I mean, I know we've been there once only, and we did one show, and I think that we should really need to consider going there and doing a proper tour, because as far as I know, there's a big market for melodic heavy metal in Australia. So that's kind of the impression I get, anyways, from all the feedback.
No, you're right. Actually, it's I guess I've been listening to heavy metal for the better part of 30 years now. It's unbelievable to say that. Maybe 25 years solidly, but 30 years really overall. And I don't think I have been around at a time where melodic metal has been more popular than it is right now, and that includes the 80s, unbelievably. But you guys are really riding the crest of that wave, if you like. Of course, there's Sabaton and there's a few other bands, but you're really the legacy band, the band that's been doing this for the longest. So can you put, apart from the fact that you're very good musicians, you write great songs, you've got a consistent body of work out there, you and Oscar have been in forces now for a very long time doing this, but what do you put the success and the popularity of you guys and indeed melodic heavy metal down to in 2019?
I think, well, if we're talking about HammerFall, I think what really made us, big was that no one really expected an album like Glory to the Brave to be released in 1997. I mean, that was a period when melodic heavy metal music was, almost forgotten.
It was a dirty word, to be honest, mate, wasn't it, back then?
Yeah, it was. And, throughout the 90s, I had to defend myself all the time, because people said, why don't you play music people want to hear? Well, my response was always, because I play the music that I want to play. That is what heavy metal is all about. I mean, follow the beat of your own drum. That's the only thing I can say. And from then on, it feels like that was the second coming of the heavy metal movement. We opened up a lot of doors back in the late 90s, but all of a sudden, every label all over the world wanted to have their own HammerFall. So the whole genre, the whole market got kind of overflooded by bands, that wanted to sound like Gamma Ray, and they sounded exactly like a bad version of it. So it was a lot of these copycats around that almost killed it. And I think people were so fed up with this so-called power metal wave that came.
Yes.
And I couldn't stand it either, because I never saw HammerFall as a power metal band. I always saw us as a traditional heavy metal band.
Yeah.
And but now we're 22 years later, and we are still a band that people are listening to, a band that people can count on, and a band that people really, talk about. And like 22 years, if you go back and look at the 80s, the 80s was not even a decade. That was like, 6, maximum 7 years. Then the whole genre kind of imploded,
Nirvana and Pearl Jam came along, yeah.
Yeah, because all of a sudden, people cared more about what they looked like instead of learning how to play an instrument. And then the grunge came and just took over. But I think metal in 2019 is very healthy. I think now we're standing very, very solid, and you have bands that will take over when the dinosaurs will, when they will die out.
Well, you guys have still got many years left in you, and I think that's a really accurate summary of the transition from the 80s into the 90s and then the resurgence. And I think you guys were really, man, it's really hard to come up with a few bands without dismissing the efforts of others, but you guys are definitely there in terms of that resurgence in the late 90s. I remember I was in Los Angeles, of all places, and I bought Renegade. I think it might have been the day it came out or the day after it came out. I remember looking so forward to it being released. But I think even there I had to buy it in the import section. So even in the States, in Australia, Australia and the States is virtually the same market, as you know. And but I had to buy it in the import section. But at least it was there. That at least it was in Sam Goody's, I think was the name of the record store in the States. I can't remember. But yeah, it was in there. And I remember buying it. And I just remember thinking, and I listened to that. And also I remember Judas Priest Jugulator. I remember getting
that's that same time, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I remember listening to those two albums. Whenever I think of the late 90s in the States, I always think of Renegade and also Jugulator because I listened to those albums back to front. And I found a lot to like about them both, but you guys have just gone from strength to strength, and now you're here with Dominion. And, I mean, look, you hear this stuff, okay? And I've only had a couple of listens to it because, I was only given the stream this morning, but to my ears, I think it might be the finest HammerFall album you guys have managed to conjure up yet. Do you agree with that?
Wow, I'm really happy to hear that. Yes, I'm so damn proud of it. So it's really hard to just say only a few words about it because it means so much. I think that it's kind of unbelievable that album number 11 is the one. Hopefully, well, I'm not sure what we're going to say in 10 years, but I think this album will be referred to as maybe a game changer for HammerFall. Maybe this is the second coming for HammerFall, where we take the next important step. At least we're doing that already now in some European countries where we now are playing arenas instead of playing the big venues, which is a very, very positive thing for us. But going back to the album, I think this is a very solid, very vivid and energetic album, and it feels very young and refreshing and very alive for some weird reason, because, I mean, we're hitting 50s now. And it doesn't feel like it's a bunch of guys turning 50 years old playing on this album, and that is a very good thing in my opinion. And
great, yeah. Well, I think the other thing too is it hints at the, and I've already mentioned Oscar, but you guys have been in Forces now ever since the first album there in 1997, okay? And Glory to the Brave, great album. What's kept you guys, your spirits high, and what's kept you guys in Forces when you've had a few people come and go? Not as many as a lot of other bands, but it must be said you guys are the mainstays of the band. So how would you describe the relationship with Oscar?
If we go back to 1996, the first time I met Oscar, they were rehearsing with HammerFall underneath like a church outside Gothenburg. And I opened the door and I heard like a melody played on the guitar, and I instantly recognized it. Like the second I heard it, like the interval, like, I know what this is. And I walked down and it was Oscar playing, and I looked at him and I said, Stormwitch, Dorian Gray. And he dropped his jaw like, what?
How do you know that?
Stormwitch? Yeah, that's one of my all-time favorite bands, I said. Like, all the albums, I said. And I think we connected right there and then. At that point, we realized that we had the same, influences. We had the same references when it came to heavy metal music. And we had the same idea where we wanted to take like a metal band. In this case, it became HammerFall. But we were on the same exact, level. But also, that means that you have two very strong wills.
Yeah.
Sometimes pulling in different directions, but we always go back to, okay, what is HammerFall all about? Well, it's traditional heavy metal. Okay, let's keep it that way. We were straying away. You say that? Straying away a little bit from the path when the Infected album came.
Okay.
Because the album itself is very underrated, I would say. But I think we were trying to find a quick cure to things that we couldn't cure, instantly. We got a manager for the first time, a manager who almost, killed everything.
Oh yeah.
In regard to the band. We got rid of him and we got another manager, and then we just say, guys, if this is going to last another 10 years, we need to take a break. So I pulled the plug in 2012 and said, guys, now we're going to take 1 year. 1 year off. We don't even going to talk to each other. We just need to like contemplate a little bit, sit down and think about what we have achieved. and we need to find the joy in playing together again. And that break changed everything, because when we came back in 2014 with Revolution, the energy was back, and I think both me and Oscar realized that, you know what, this is our life and this is what we do. And now we just need to treat this with as much as respect as possible, and just go out there in the front line and fight for HammerFall and fight for heavy metal in general. And then, of course, Anders left the band, but me and Oscar were still standing strong, because we felt that it doesn't matter if one person leaves and we need to replace them, because we were so determined where we wanted to take HammerFall.
Yes, yeah, you're not wrong. And there was a moment in time, and I really appreciated that you guys did this, but Chuck Schuldiner doesn't pick bands on a whim. He really knew what he was doing, the great late Chuck Schuldiner. And you guys had what I believe was a very successful tour across the States. No, about the same time I was there, actually, but I didn't get to see any of the shows. But was that the moment that you realised, in the States in particular, and maybe even by extension places like Australia and the UK, that things were going to work out for you guys? The fact that you could work with an icon of heavy metal like Chuck Schuldiner, who's in a completely different genre, if you like, but he always insisted that he just played heavy metal, and I always loved that about him. That he could pick you guys to tour with, and the shows, as I understand, were very well attended. You guys did very well. So is that how you saw things at the time?
Yeah, I mean, that was a fantastic tour for us. That just happened right after the second album came out, and we were still learning how to, get along in the business. We were rookies, totally rookies, and Chuck treated us so good. I mean, he never saw us as a support band, because he said, no, we're in this together. And we said, okay, can we play 45 minutes? And he just looked at us. You can play as long as you like. And like, no, you're the headliner. Come on, he said, we're in this together. He was such a fantastic person, and we became so close friends. Just, so sad that he left us so early, man. So we had good days and bad days on that tour. I mean, in some territories we did really well, but then when you hit the deep south, or up in San Francisco, I remember a lot of people like, what the fuck is this? They wanted to hear, death metal. Oh no, this is too cheesy. This is heavy metal. Go away, But still, there are narrow-minded people all over the world. And when it came to the US, then we came back 4 years later on tour with Dio. But after that, I think we kind of mistreated the North American territory, unfortunately, and kind of gave up on it in 2011. Right before the Infected album came out. But we found people that truly believed in us and went back in 2017, and that was the game changer, I would say, that makes this album sound the way it does. Because we did a double headline tour with a co-headline tour with Delane, and this is by far one of the greatest tours I've ever been on. Because we had so much fun together within the band, both off stage and on stage. And since we also all of a sudden were starting to being creative on tour, something that never happened before, that we were writing songs actually in the tour bus.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
We managed to get the momentum and the positive vibes and energy from stage into the songwriting process. I mean, Oscar ran off stage sometimes, just threw his guitar in the corner, grabbed a beer, and went back in the bus and started to riff around. And I was sitting in the front of the bus, working on melodies and working on lyrics. So, I mean, we were really, the boundaries. We were... Yeah,
you're pushing the boundaries, expanding yourselves.
We were really pushing the boundaries and... challenging ourselves at this point. And I mean, this tour was a game changer. Also, that led up to the fact that we did another tour a year later, a headline tour, that we also had to postpone. We had to push the release and the recordings of this album, but we can continue be creative on tour and have a good time. And I mean, it all comes down to having fun. If it's not fun, you should do something else. Now, I think we all are at a good place in life, and the band is also at a very good place right now. So I'm only positive for the future.
Good on you. I think you guys are experiencing something of a second coming. Is that a fair statement? Is that a fair assessment on things? I mean, you've got this cracking album that, I mean, I know in this day and age it's hard to get physical sales, but it's a sort of album that I think will do well with metal fans who want physical copies. It's got great artwork accompanying it. But do you think that, when you talk about the future does look really bright for you guys, but I think you're not going to run out of runway. I just think you'll run out of energy. So does it feel like that for you guys?
Yeah, I'm actually referring to this album as the second coming of HammerFall. I think this is not the new beginning, but it's the second coming because we never, gave up or quit. We've been around the whole time, but now it feels like we are ready to take on the next 10 years. And we are also ready in some territories to step up when the old dinosaurs are dead and gone.
Well, that'll be soon. That's a really, really good point you make there. And look, I've got my own views on what Judas Priest are doing these days, and even Iron Maiden. I'm really glad Slayer are calling it quits, to be honest with you. I'm a bit different to the average metal fan, and that once I've seen a band once or twice, I don't need to go and see them again. And I actually think a lot of bands almost take away from their legacy by going too long. And that is true for a lot of the bands that have been going since like even the late 70s, 80s. And I just don't think live, a lot of them are cutting it. Now we've got this, my own opinion here is this ridiculous situation. We've got bloody holograms touring with the Dio thing. And I know a lot of fans like that, but I just, I don't know. To me, live needs to be, it's a visceral thing. You need to see people. If you're going to do the three-dimensional thing, you can do that on the internet and use immersive technology like Google Glasses and that sort of thing at home to do that. And I don't hold it against the musicians, Craig Goldie and all these wonderful guitarists and musicians. They've got to earn a quid, so I don't blame them for doing that at all. But I think at this stage in time, mate, you guys are headliners. When I say headliners, are you guys at the point now where you could headline a Wacken or anything or any of those big festivals? Is that the time now has arrived for that for you guys?
Absolutely. I mean, we did headline last summer a couple of bigger festivals in Germany. As for Wacken, now we're at a position right before I think it's Sabaton it's HammerFall, Sabaton, and Airborne in that order on the main stages. And I mean, we are up there, and we just need to not prove. I don't think we have anything left to prove, but if they give us, the chance, we will deliver. Then we will really come with a gigantic show. I mean, at the Sweden Rock Festival, we still played in daylight, but in Sweden, it's daylight 24/7 in the summer anyways. But I mean, we pull off a really, really energetic show, and we were not the headliner. Because, I mean, bands like ZZ Top, they put them as a headliner. And I'm like, what?
What the hell?
Come on. Yeah, I mean, they fill a purpose. I mean, the purpose is all based on nostalgia. But don't let them play 90 minutes. It's too long. Let them play, a maximum of, maybe 45 plus encore. That would make sense. And I think also for them, that would be enough.
Well, I think you're right. I think you're right.
I don't want, but this is my impression.
Yeah, no, you're spot on.
We are absolutely ready to.
Well, your statements mirror what I'm thinking and feeling, because even though I've been into metal a long time, I don't need to listen to Iron Maiden anymore, to be quite honest with you, because it's in my DNA. You understand what I mean? Like when I was a teenager and in my early 20s, mate, one of the only bands that I listened to through whole periods of it. But yeah, there's this thing where there's ZZ Top at Wacken. I mean, what the hell? I mean, I assume that they do market research and they get feedback from fans via social media that having them on the bill is appropriate. But the way that I look at it, they're taking the place of a metal band. Okay, and that's a metal festival, and that's how I look at it.
I do understand why they want to have these bands, because it looks damn good on the posters in the marketing.
Yeah, maybe getting a few strays that might be interested in heavy metal along, but there are other bands that you can do that with. I won't mention any now because I can't think of any, but there are other bands that you could do that with. But yeah, that was weird. ZZ Top. I just hope that you don't start getting some pop artists on that stage there, and that organisers overstretch their hand, because it's really the one or we only got one festival down here, which is Download. I know you guys in Europe have got a lot more than that, but still it's taking the place of another band. But I'll ask you this next question, because I reckon I've spoken to more musicians from Sweden outside of the US and Australia than anywhere else. Now, for a country that has such a relatively small population compared to everywhere else in the world, I mean, per head per capita globally, I think there are more Swedish musicians.
I lost you there.
Oh, sorry. There? Yeah, can you hear me?
Hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
Oh, now I hear you. I think you have to. Yep, you hear me.
I'll restate the point because. Hey, can you hear me?
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you.
No worries. I was just saying that I think Sweden punches well above its weight in terms of its contribution to the music industry overall. I've spoken to musicians in orchestra pits that are from Sweden here in Australia. But my question for you is, what is it in the water in Sweden that produces such wonderful musicians?
It's pure cocaine, I think. I'm not sure. No, then we would be happy. It's probably something depressing. I don't know. No, I think we have to go back to. I mean, in Sweden, if you're young and you want to learn how to play an instrument, you can get like community music schools. Are for everyone. It's open and available for everyone, and you only pay a very, very small fee to be able to learn how to play whatever instrument you want to play. And you get supported throughout, school. And by the time you're ready to form a band, you actually get funds. And sometimes you have rehearsal, spaces fully equipped that you can go and try and play, in a band. And as for HammerFall, we got supported the first couple of years to have our own rehearsal room.
Wow! Okay.
And we actually got money from the government to have that. At some point, I said, you know what? No, we don't want your money. We can make a living out of this now. Give the money to someone else.
Yeah, okay.
Because they also know that they know that if because music is probably the second biggest export that we have in Sweden. They know the revenue. They will get a lot of money back in taxes.
They figured that part of it out. Yeah, I thought it might have been like, the Swedish government globally in terms of the West is famously socialist compared to a lot of other countries, and socialist in a lot of good ways. But I think there are some ways where, believe me, I've spoken to heaps of Swedish musicians who have said, "Don't record this. I'll tell you exactly what it's like in Stockholm now, or what have you, with some of the issues that are happening over there." But one of the things that I think that I've heard consistently is what you're mentioning, which is that musicians and artists are supported. And what's interesting that you've added, though, is that there's some consensus within the community is not to take too much beyond what you actually need. And I like that,
right,
because a lot of people sort of go beyond that and just keep on taking and taking because it's normal. But I guess that goes some way to explaining why in Australia here, a lot of people sort of leave school with a head full of steam about starting a band, but 2 years later they're working a shit job in a supermarket or whatever. You know what I'm saying? They're not pursuing their dreams anymore. But in Sweden, it's a little bit different.
Yeah, at least for when it comes to how to learn how to play an instrument and keep your dream alive, but they will not give you money just for being a slacker. I mean, you still have to work, but at least the biggest problem I see all over the world is finding a rehearsal space.
Yeah, it's a nightmare, that one. Yeah, I mean, there's there's all those things now where you can hook up and you can listen to everybody playing, in your headphones. There's even Bluetooth technology where you can do that, where you can rehearse at home. But man, there's nothing like being
not the same.
Not the
it's
same.
Not the same. No.
Yeah. I'm a musician too, and we've tried it many times, and it's shit. It doesn't work, and it feels really artificial. You need to be in a rehearsal room listening to acoustic drums. Yeah,
exactly. You need the drums.
Yeah.
You need the drums and the ambience, but apart from that, you can still do the guitars through a Kemper, and the vocals only in the in-ear. That's fine, but the drums, you need the horrible crash cymbal in there somewhere.
Indeed, yeah. All right, mate, I'll let you go, but my final question is I write for Metal Obsession, but I also host a podcast series. So if you're cool, I'd like to release what we've spoken about on my podcast series.
Yeah, sure. As long as it makes sense what I just,
it makes complete sense. Yeah, it makes complete sense. Yeah, no, it's
good.
Cool. It's really good feedback. I've been looking forward. It's been many years that I've been looking forward to having a chat to a member of HammerFall, and then I can chat to you, mate. It's a wonderful thing. So thanks for creating the music you've created. You've been a soundtrack to my life over the many years.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you very much for talking to me, and hope to see you in Australia.
Fingers crossed.
Awesome.
See you soon.
Cheers.
Thanks, mate.
Okay, bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series that syndicates for the A-List Online, and my name is Andrew Mackay-Smith. That interview subject was the singer from HammerFall, Joacim Cans. Thanks so much for listening.